The door closed behind her with a quiet mechanical sigh, and in that instant the alien woman felt something far worse than fear settle into her chest, because the human pilot standing across the room looked at her as if the universe had already taken everything from him and was now merely mocking him by sending one more problem he did not ask for. She stood frozen in the narrow metal quarters, her skin faintly glowing from stress, her breath uneven, her body aching from wounds she had no time to heal, while the human did not reach for a weapon or shout for help, but simply stared, his eyes dull, heavy, and tired beyond his years. His name was Elias Ward, though no one said it with respect anymore. Not since the mission where he had followed orders and watched an entire colony burn. Not since command needed someone to blame and chose the quiet pilot who survived. Once praised, now avoided, Elias lived in the lowest deck of the station, assigned to broken ships and meaningless patrols, carrying guilt like a permanent injury that never healed. The alien woman, Cialira, had not meant to enter his room. She had been running through unfamiliar corridors, chased by her own kind, hunted for the crime of questioning an ancient truth, accused of betrayal for daring to say that humans were not the monsters the galaxy claimed them to be. Every story she had heard spoke of human violence, human cruelty, human hunger for domination. Yet the man before her radiated none of it, only loneliness and a quiet, crushing resignation. Elias slowly raised his hand toward the emergency alarm, then hesitated as he noticed the burn marks along her arms, the dried blood staining her side. The way her legs trembled as if holding her upright required more strength than she had left. He exhaled sharply, as if disappointed in himself, and told her she had a few minutes before patrols returned, his voice flat, controlled, and empty, because he no longer believed that doing the right thing ever led to the right outcome. Cialira tried to turn, tried to leave, but her body failed her, collapsing onto the cold floor as pain and exhaustion finally claimed their due. And the last thing she saw before darkness pulled her under was Elias kneeling beside her, swearing softly, not at her, but at fate itself. When she woke, the room smelled of antiseptic and recycled air, and the human sat nearby, cleaning dry blood from his hands with practiced movements that betrayed a past filled with rescue rather than destruction. He did not ask who she was or why she was hunted. He simply worked in silence, because questions had once cost him everything. Cialira watched him carefully, listening to his heartbeat through her sensitive hearing, realizing it was uneven, burdened, as if it carried memories too heavy to release. Over time, words came slowly between them, fragments at first, then longer confessions whispered in the dim light of the small room. Elias spoke of the mission that ruined him, of orders transmitted from safe distances, of civilians screaming through broken comms, of choosing between disobedience and annihilation, and being punished for surviving either way. Cialira shared her own story in return, of a civilization built on fear, of rulers who maintained power by declaring humans unstable and dangerous, of her role as a researcher who had seen the truth during early contact and spoken it aloud, only to be marked as a traitor and sentenced to die quietly. Days passed as they hid together, each patrol tightening the noose, each moment of silence filled with unspoken dread. Yet something fragile and powerful grew between them. Not desire, but understanding, the rare comfort of being seen without judgment. Elias found purpose again in tending her wounds, in protecting someone who trusted him when no one else did, while Cialira found herself unwilling to leave even when she regained strength, because the broken human pilot made her feel safer than any fleet or law. The station, however, was not blind, and eventually the alarm sounded openly. Red lights washing over metal walls as alien enforcement ships docked without clearance, their soldiers flooding the corridors with ruthless efficiency. Elias knew what this meant, knew there would be no mercy, and for the first time since his fall, fear returned, sharp and burning, not for his own life, but for hers. He tried to guide Cialira toward hidden maintenance tunnels, urging her to run while she still could, but she refused. Her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, telling him she was tired of running, tired of watching others suffer for her existence. When the door exploded inward under concentrated fire, chaos followed, blasts tearing through the room. Elias thrown hard against the wall as pain tore through his side, blood filling his mouth as his vision blurred, while Cialira screamed his name in a way that shattered something deep within him. Surrounded, hunted, and cornered, she made a choice her people had forbidden for generations, awakening the ancient energy bound within her, a power feared not because it was evil, but because it could change everything. Light surged outward, invisible force slamming into soldiers, weapons clattering uselessly as systems failed, while Elias lay on the floor, barely conscious, watching the truth unfold, realizing she was not just a fugitive, but a living catalyst, cursed to be hunted because her power threatened the balance of the galaxy. The energy burned her from within, her glow dimming as her strength faded, and she collapsed beside him, whispering through tears that entering his room had not been an accident at all, that destiny often hid itself behind mistakes, and that she did not want to leave because he reminded her that kindness could exist even in a universe ruled by fear. Elias, weak and bleeding, reached for her hand with shaking fingers and begged her to stop, to live, to not sacrifice herself for a species that had already broken him. And in that moment, something deeper than power awakened between them. Cialira made a final choice, sharing the energy instead of releasing it alone, binding their lives together in an act of trust no treaty had ever imagined. The surge rippling through the station, disabling fleets, sending a signal across space that could not be ignored. When Elias woke days later, wrapped in sterile light and quiet machines, Cialira sat beside him, alive, changed, her power stabilized through their bond, no longer a weapon, but a promise. Leaders from both worlds stood waiting, fearful and uncertain, because the universe had shifted, not through conquest, but through compassion. As Elias took his first unsteady steps beside her, he understood that humanity's true strength was not destruction, but the ability to protect even when it cost everything. And Cialira knew that hope could be born in the smallest places. From one wrong door, one broken pilot, and one alien woman who refused to leave, proving that survival was not about ruling the stars, but about choosing connection when fate demanded abandonment.